Let's talk about the garbage Panthers. They're bad, dude. They're bad, and we all know this. They've won one game. Now, I said on Tuesday I was ready to call Bryce Young a bust. And I may revise my statement here. And I believe we'll agree on this. I know that you said things that will back this up on Tuesday. Bryce Young should not have been the first quarterback drafted. Bryce Young should not have been the second quarterback drafted. And Bryce Young should not have been the third quarterback drafted. There are three other rookie quarterbacks that should have gone ahead of Bryce Young in this draft. All of that being said, and we saw the comments, and I chose to watch with those in mind, this whole team is very rough. There is not a lot of help for him. The amount of plays where he was just like, well, I'm swallowed up by this D-line, or I'm rolling out for my life right now. It was just pretty absurd. It is not a very good offensive line. He's not getting help. His wide receiver one is Adam Thielen. That's not a dig on Adam Thielen. It's just like we got to consider some things before we make claims like that. So I'm willing to say I do not think Bryce Young it is fair for him to be labeled a bust yet. He is in a bad situation. Wes, you and I both know very well, being Miami Dolphins fans, when you don't have talent around you, it's tough for you to look good. We watched Tua Tagovailoa have Mac Hollins as his wide receiver one in his rookie year. And it was not very, very pretty. It was not very good. But this team is rough. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And it's hard to see them being like a player or two away. It's like it feels like it's like you're like 5 years away from like a winning record. It feels like
they're the bottom of the barrel. I mean, they are 10 players away from being 10 players away. You know, like that's where they're at. Like they are far away from being good. And the worst part is Bryce Young was the first pick taken overall. He's the quarterback that was selected first overall, and that puts an insane amount of pressure and expectation on a quarterback because you are expected to turn this franchise around. And no quarterback really does that their first year. We have some outliers, and they are the outliers, but I was reading the comments, and it was just like everyone was saying it's not fair to call him a bust yet. It's not fair. There's only been 8 games that he's played because he missed one already. Yeah. So it's not fair to call him a bust. But there's reason to admit that the trajectory right now is trending towards him being a bust. And unfortunately, that's not all on him. That is just the circumstance of his team, and he just may not be on a team that can actually succeed. And this was the worst part, is that I thought between Young and Stroud, whoever went to the Panthers, I thought was going to have a better start, because it was Frank Reich, former quarterback, who led the Bills to the greatest comeback in history at that point. And then it's Josh McCown, who is his quarterback's coach, who played for a bunch of teams. It was like, this is such a quarterback-friendly situation, and Adam Thielen is there, and Miles Sanders is there, and Chuba Hubbard is there. You got a solid tight end. But you think about it, no one on that offense played with that team last year. They're brand new players. This is a pickup pool of football players on offense. That's the worst part. Now, I went ahead and I just wanted to crank out some numbers here on Bryce Young's pace and what the expectations are. It's a little tricky looking at all of the rookie quarterbacks that have played over the last 20 years, because I went back to 2002 and looked at 20 years of quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, to see how they did. A lot of them did not play a lot of games, so I tried to have 10 games as a minimum to get a decent sample size. I looked through. He's on pace to do what rookie quarterbacks do. Okay? He's just on pace for that. But I went more specific, and I looked at what did the first overall quarterbacks do over the last 20 years. And about 10 of them played 10 or more games. And when you calculate that to a 17-game season, first overall quarterbacks average 4,027 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. Right now, Bryce Young is on pace for 3,300 yards and 19 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. Okay. And that is difficult because then there's C.J. Stroud, who's on pace for 4,800 yards and 30 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That is the pace as of right now. So there's something to be said about a bust as a byproduct of the circumstances of the environment, and there's something to admit about a bust by comparison to the players taken after you.
Right.
Recently, we think of Mitch Trubisky and how he was taken, and then later went Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So one last thing, because this is a fantasy football show, so we'll get into fantasy here in a second, but people were saying the first overall pick goes to a really bad team. In fact, they go to the worst team in the NFL, so we can't expect good things. I don't mean to be the bad guy, but the Panthers were not the worst team in the NFL last year. They traded up.
Yeah.
They traded up 7 spots. The Bears were the worst team last year, and they just beat the Panthers. So
with a D2 quarterback.
And that's another thought. The expectations for a first overall pick compared to an undrafted quarterback are night and day. And when Tyson Bagent does what he just did on Thursday night, you look at that and you say, very impressive, nice. If Bryce Young were to do that, it'd be like, okay, yeah, you're supposed to do that. Yeah. But when Bryce Young does what he does on Thursday night, you start to wonder, is he even good?
Yeah.
That's just what happens. And it's not fair. It really isn't fair. Because then you have the Josh Rosens, you have the Jamarcus Russells, you have Baker Mayfield, who's been on like multiple teams. Because then you have Peyton Manning, and you have Joe Burrow, and you have many, many other quarterbacks that have at least been to the Super Bowl. It sucks. It does suck. But right now, Bryce Young is just not good. He is not good, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. And I feel very bad for Panthers fans.
I mean, he's QB1 on the week right now, so.
Right now, dude, after Thursday night, he's the QB1.
Dude. QB1, dude. Let's go.
Who are you, dude? Oh, my gosh. There's the nail in the coffin, dude. There it is. Yeah. The page is turned.
No, thank you. QB1 on the week. Get out of here with that.
More points than Mahomes this week.
So, 900 times more points than Mahomes this week. Gosh, what are we? What a bunch of fools calling him a bust. No, here's my last thoughts on it is that this team, when it's been led by Bryce Young, has put up 17 or less fantasy points in 6 of their 8 games they played with him.
Right.
Like, that's not great. I mean, he put up more points in the first quarter against the Miami Dolphins than he did all night against the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton played the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle and scored 27 points with this team.
Dude.
That can't go untalked about, I think. Like, and maybe it is that this is just how rookies should be performing. I've said for a long time. I've said for a few years now, and it's primarily come with being a Dolphins fan, but it applies to a lot of rookie quarterbacks. Justin Herbert ruined the rookie quarterback for us, for NFL fans. Justin Herbert came in and set like insane amounts of like rookie records. He put up tons of yards, touchdowns. Like he passed the eye test. But Justin Herbert's rookie year ruined rookie quarterbacks for us, and so that is the standard that rookie quarterbacks are held to now. Which is why when you see a player like C.J. Stroud do what he's doing this year, that's why people are like, "Wow, Stroud is already an elite quarterback." I've seen people saying that there are only 6 quarterbacks in the NFL that they would take over C.J. Stroud right now. What are we talking about here? I don't know about that. Come on, what are we doing? That feels like a stretch and a half. It's like,
yeah,
I get the recency bias. I get that he threw for 470 and 5, but the week before he threw for 140 and 0 and against the Panthers.
He lost to Bryce Young.
He lost to Bryce Young, and I get that Bryce Young doesn't play defense or whatever, but what are we doing here? This team, this Panthers defense that gave up 21 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown to Deontay Foreman. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud couldn't get an offense going with Dameon Pierce or Devin Singletary to get anything going on the ground there. And it's not all on him, but the standard for rookie quarterbacks has been ruined in recent years. And so I think it's a good reminder, to myself included, because I was ready to call him a bust, that rookies are exactly that. They're not coming into the league having experience like Mahomes and Burrow and Allen under their belt. They're coming in and they're getting their first action in the NFL. And so
right.
I want to loosen the leash on Bryce Young a little bit here and recognize that this team is bad around him, and also he's just getting his feet wet. He's getting ready. But it's worth noting that Andy Dalton isn't incredible, or I do dare say good, and he put up 27 points with this team. So it's the experience will come, the time will do its work. And I think Bryce Young is going to be there for 5 years, so at least. So I think we'll in time see what we can make happen here. And they may not keep the regime, the coaches, the running, they'll fix things around him that they see they need to fix. But I think everything will be ultimately okay. There's a reason he went number 1 overall, and so. Watching that game, he just didn't have time. I felt bad for the guy. It was man, I
feel bad for him too. I'll add
And
one.
not to, real quick, and a lot of things wrong around him. He also had moments where he just looked bad. This is not excusing overthrows. He also had moments, or I will say moment, where he threw a 40-yard pass perfectly on the dot, on corner, like a corner route, on the run. I'm pretty sure, and that was whoa. That's probably why they drafted number 1 overall. But
sure.
All that being said, go ahead. We'll finish out our Panthers talk here. Go ahead.
I was just adding on to that thought that you said. It doesn't we understand the reason people are you can't jump the gun and call him a bust right away. But there is reason to look at what he's doing and say this isn't good. So the what feels like the standard of bad rookie year turned to Hall of Fame is Peyton Manning, right? Everyone always goes to Peyton Manning. They're well, Peyton Manning had a terrible rookie year. He's the record for most interceptions by a rookie, and they went 3-13. And then the next year they go 13-3. Well, I looked it up. Peyton Manning was 3rd in passing yards his rookie year, and he was 5th in touchdowns his rookie year. So and that's Peyton Manning, but that's the first overall pick. That's the quarterback taken number 1 overall. That's where Bryce Young is being. He's on that list now of quarterbacks taken first overall. And another quarterback, as we mentioned, we're Dolphins fans. We stood by Tua and we said we can see the flashes of his greatness. His rookie year, when you average it out to 17 games and what he did, which looked terrible, he was averaging more yards than Bryce Young is averaging now. He was averaging more touchdowns. He averaged 21 touchdowns, and he averaged 9 interceptions. Tua was statistically on a better pace than what Bryce Young is at right now. Yeah. And there's the difference between stats and the eye test, and it both do not measure up. But let us know in the comments, because this was a debate in our last episode, and it is fair. When do you say a quarterback is a bust? That is the question. At what point?